Ex-inmates of Reddit, what was the worst thing you've seen a new inmate do on his first day in prison? Worked as a corrections officer, guy got busted for sexual assault of a minor, figured everyone else in the tank was on similar charges, so began talking openly about it, feeling he was safe. We had to subdue 5 guys who jumped him in the rec yard. Guy was sent to the hospital as he was fairly unresponsive. He was sent to protective custody after that. Kid came in, and I assume he has watched a lot of movies cause he figured he'd fight the biggest guy on the range. Lol. He wasn't even the toughest guy in the hospital he woke up in. This idiot walked right into a Mexican gang meeting and almost got beaten up. Source: I'm the idiot. Kid gets booked in, hits the unit and starts borrowing food and other commissary items. Before he knew it, he was $200 in the hole. Problem is, in jail and prison, most people who are willing to loan items out expect 2 or 3 of the same item back. Yeah, I know. Interest. Very easy way to get yourself indebted is by borrowing any food or other items. Never get in debt while incarcerated. A slight twist. We had a pink wet floor sign that we would put up in the entrance to the showers, so everyone knew there was someone in there jerking off. The fun game was to watch the new guys, myself included, innocently walk into the entrance to the showers that very first time, past the pink wet floor sign, and then see him come skittering back out a few moments later. Goofy looking kid, curly hair, thick glasses. He comes in, and for some reason he befriends me. He starts telling me what he did, sexual assault of a minor. I told him not to be telling nobody that crap, because it'll get you in trouble. The rest of that day and the next, I bailed out. By then, I could hear him from across the hall telling other people. Not surprised if he's been kicked around a few times. Father-in-law did 12 years on a second-degree murder app back in the very early 90s. He told me that one time this new guy plopped himself down at the Hells Angels table and started eating breakfast. When he was told to move, he ignored them. After breakfast, the COs ended up having to cut through about 6 rolls of duct tape to get the guy loose. He never sat near the HAs again. Admit that he was in for sexual assault and being a pedo. And then it was about 8 PM, and we found out he was a chronic masturbator and he would not stop jacking off in his bunk. He was 22. And it was jail, not prison, so at that moment, we had maybe 12 to 15 people in our cell. Some guy woke up from a nap and thought he was having a seizure, so he went to go check on him. What a goddamn shock they both had. Not me but my dad. Guy came in bragging about what he did. Said he was a monster and the toughest guy around, and that he could take anybody on in the pen. Giving him the benefit of the doubt, he apparently was a big and tough guy. Come to find out though, he was in for the assault, rape, then murder of a woman and her child. He might have been big and tough, but not after 5 big guys beat the absolute crap out of him and practically killed him. As most of you know, the one thing all prisoners can agree on is that anyone who messes with kids or women are on an immediate hit list. Where I was in prison, they utilized 40mm soft round launchers to respond to group disturbances. Let me tell you, they weren't soft. Kid comes in thinking he's still hardcore from juvenile hall because guards there didn't do anything when people fought. Decided to up and join a gang that he knew nothing about on his first day, thought he was tough, and started to diss the gang they had high tensions with at the time, and started a group disturbance. COs respond, tell him to get down, he refuses and curses at them. Boom, 40mm to his face. Was an accidental shot to the face according to the CO. Face was distorted as hell after. Fractured skull. On his first day. So my dad's currently convicted, and the craziest story he's told me is one of the newer inmates was young and arrogant. Always spouting off bullcrap about how unaccountable he was. Then one day, another inmate packed up his items, went into the younger inmate's cell, and tried to strangle him. The younger inmate was that freaking annoying. He survived. The attempted murderer is in max, and when the younger inmate came back from the hospital, he was still spouting bullcrap. Just going to generalize. Small town folk who are used to being the biggest and baddest. Big fish small pond types who think they are going to be king when they walk in. They usually are dominated pretty quickly. Dominated being either beat or made into a bee. Best bet if you go to prison, hopefully no one ever goes, is unless you know someone well connected on the inside. Just keep your head down, focus on yourself and your time. It's going to be boring, menial, and seemingly endless, but you don't want to get caught up in any gang stuff or be snitching. There's a code and system in prison that needs to be followed, and if you walk in like king shit of Turd Hill, when you are a nobody you will learn real quick that you ain't nothing. Went in when I was a young idiot. Our pod was all bunk beds, no cells. Just the room with beds, and a side room with the TV. It was a unit for all the people working the same job. New guy comes in, little white dude. Quiet and kept to himself. Until one night, out of nowhere he starts sprinting around the room singing at the top of his lungs in the tune of Black Sabbath's Iron Man, but changed the lyrics to "I'm the N-word man, running through the hood from the Ku Klux Klan." Everyone was just kind of frozen for about 15 seconds, seriously confused. Then someone tripped him, and then it was just mayhem, until the CO could get enough help to disperse the crowd. I remember being surprised he survived. Everyone in the unit had steel toe boots for the job we did, holding them and hitting him in with them instead of wearing and kicking. The scene afterwards where all the guys are trying to figure out whose boots are whose, and comparing who's had the most blood was freaking surreal. I got bunk restriction while I was in jail on one of my first night. Twice a day they did roll call, where we all had to sit on our bunk, be quiet, while the officer came bunk to bunk, and checked all of our wristbands, and made sure we were all who we are. Halfway through he was doing this, someone rips the loudest, fattest, longest wet fart I've ever heard in my life. Me having the mind of a 5-year-old burst into laughter. I've never heard a fart like this in my life. A few other guys laugh, but even thinking of it now I giggle about it. Anyways, the officer is like, "Alright, settle down," but I can't stop laughing about it. He tells me to calm down, but I tell him through my tears of laughter I literally cannot help it. I really couldn't. It was the funniest thing that happened the few days I was in there. Anyway, he gets pissed. I try to explain I'm not trying to be rude and disobey him through my laughter, but he isn't having it. Luckily he just gave me bunk restriction and didn't punish everyone, but I could see the TV from my bunk, so I just hung out the rest of the night. My family attorney told me about one of his clients who was sentenced to 2 years for a federal case, non-violent. Someone gave him really bad advice about how to survive in federal prison. He followed the advice and found a big tough looking guy on the very first day. He beat him up severely. The victim turned out to be a tough looking guy who was actually a gentle giant who didn't fight back much. Ended up with 2 broken legs and a fractured rib. My attorney's client got 4 extra years added to his 2-year sentence. That's what I call stupid. This was about 15 years ago. Not sure if the guy survived prison or not. Current correctional officer. We had a brand new inmate who'd never been in jail before. He was given a lightly used mattress that had been sewn up and sent back to our open dorm. About 30 minutes into it, he calls a central control saying that his mat had a lump in it. Yes, just like the Princess and the Pea. An officer goes back to check it out. Sure enough, there's about a thumb-sized lump in this dude's mattress. The CO opens the sewn end of the mat and finds a black package. For those of you not familiar with correctional lingo, this refers to an object typically ovular in shape that is wrapped in black electrical tape, commonly used to transport contraband via the rectum. He takes the package and the mat and comes back up to intake. 5 minutes later we get an emergency call out for a fight in that housing unit. 4 old timers, inmates who've been there a while, jumped the kid and were calling him an officer, and when we were escorting him out they told us to make sure he put an application in. The package ended up being a small amount of tobacco, which is a pretty common find for us. That kid never came back to jail. Probably for the best. Here in Canada, there isn't really any rape in prisons as they look at it like, how can we beat up or kill sex offenders if we are ones ourselves? It was my first time in a federal pen and I didn't know this golden rule. The first day I got there I was assigned a cell, and when I went in, this older guy was in it, my future cellmate. He told me the guy who had the bunk before me wasn't really a clean guy, and I should get some disinfectant and a mop, and pointed me in the direction of the cleaning supplies room. I went in, and I was filling my mop bucket when I looked up and noticed these kind of shelves on the wall that said Government of Canada on them. In the shelves were condoms and lube and bleach. My eyes widened, and I went back to my cell and whispered loudly to my cellie, "What the freak, they are encouraging rape?" I told him about the condoms and he laughed. "Bro, there's gay guys in here who have consensual sex and it's their way of stopping HIV. We just use the bleach to clean our tattoo needles and dye our hair if we get bored." Former CO here. I was in what's called the intake building. When people would come in for their first day, I would hold their papers in my hand all official like, put my shoulders back and loudly announce, "Gentlemen, line up, toes on the line. Welcome to building 5. You will remain in your cell for 2 weeks. Your property will arrive within 1 week. If it doesn't, you may then let me know. At this prison, disputes are settled on the yard with a dance-off competition. If you have an issue with someone, let us know, and we will provide cardboard. Now everyone, on the count of 3 you will do 10 jumping jacks." And occasionally a first timer would do 1 jumping jack and everyone would laugh. Worked as a CO for 5 years, and the dumbest thing I've seen was a young wangster wannabe gangster comes in and starts asking this one guy what's he in for, and guy just straight up backhands him, big pimp hand power, and starts yelling for us to get young guy away from him. We separate them and get young guy to a different seating area and he just wouldn't keep his mouth shut. He also kept claiming to be affiliated with the house down and he saw someone from his, so he sat with him. But real gangster did his own investigation and found him out. Young guy got his ass beat once again. We found out young guy did have tattoos that closely resemble the same tattoos as the house down Tango Blast, but he obviously wasn't affiliated in any way. Worked in the hospital of a prison. Tiny white guy was an enforcer for a big MC on the outside and his signature threat was a big Bowie knife, which they do not let you bring inside, but that did not check his attitude at all. Flash forward like 2 hours. After he is checked in, he is being beat up by a large member of one of the indigenous gangs for running his mouth off about how he could take all comers. Got thrown in solitary for his own protection. 2 weeks after he gets out of solitary, I see him sitting in the waiting room to see the head psychologist. Old, crusty, I have Soren type. Calmly tells the doctor that he is going to cut himself if he does not get put back in solitary. Doctor replies, "Okay, but I hear you have been running up a tab, so go ahead, do it. I'll get you stitched back up and sent right back out there. Time to tell me what is going on." Tatted up tiny freaker just burst into tears and starts bawling about his $2,000 debt that he has run up in 2 weeks. He went back to segregation for the maximum amount of time we could keep him there. I think about him a lot. I was at CMCF in Mississippi in quick bed waiting for a spot in a boot camp program when I was 18. This guy was on his first day and I was free and D with him cause he racked next to me and didn't seem like a terrible guy. After he had settled in for a few hours, he got the bright idea to change the channel on the only TV in the zone. Now you convicts out there know that when the soaps are on, that TV stays on soaps till they are over. I told him don't do it. Apparently he couldn't stand watching Days of Our Lives, so he just wouldn't listen and said, "Nah freak, that they don't run crap." He got up off his rack and started towards the TV. The shot caller for the GDs got up right behind him, and as soon as his finger hit the button and he turned around, he got knocked the freak out. Boast about being a pedophile. My uncle was an SQ for 12 years and he told me this once. Guy comes in and gets in an argument during chow on the first day and blurts out that if he didn't mind screwing little girls and boys on the outside, that he wouldn't mind screwing anyone or anything to survive there on the inside. While they were walking back to their cells, my uncle saw someone throw stone slab from the 3rd floor and nearly cut the man in half right in front of him. He said it was probably the worst thing he saw while he was there. He said he looked like a squashed bug with his legs and arms twitching in wrong directions. So this actually happened to me. When I was in a pretrial center, they were replacing all the locks in my unit. Not sure if it was just my unit or all of them, so they kept us in the gymnasium all day. One half, there was a big folding divider down the middle, had a TV and PS2 and food, bread, toaster, margarine lol, and the other side had a blue mat for each inmate with bathrooms on either side. I had to crap, so I just went for the closest bathroom. About halfway through my crap I was lucky I was already on a toilet because it sounded like an enraged silverback was pounding on the door demanding to know what the freak I was doing in the bathroom. So I opened the door and told this freaking Goliath that I had just crap. He said he was gonna kill me because that's the bathroom where they smoke weed and blow it into the toilet. I had no idea that if you bail out the shutter it sucks the smoke into the pipes. Luckily, the unit's new guy came over and saved my ass big time and they just made me scrub the crap out of the bathroom and rebail the toilet. I was terrified and really started to rethink my life at that point. Like and subscribe for more Reddit videos.